But tonight we're talking all things black. We're talking all things black mental health. My name is Roxanne Francis, and I am the owner and operator of Francis Therapy, where we talk all things mental health and real life. And tonight we are talking about black mental health and real life. We are talking about how being black impacts your mental health. Hey Valerie, tonight we're talking about how your mental health is different just because you're black. We're talking about all things that impact you as a black person, if you're a black person, and how all of it trickles down into your mental health. If you are a black person, this is for you. I want you to chime in. I want you to jump in as we have this conversation. If you are a white person, I want you to jump in and as we have this conversation, because this impacts you as well. Your existence also impacts us as black individuals. And if you are neither black nor white, but you are otherwise othered, then I want you to chime in as well. And that really just means if you are, if you are racialized, but you don't identify as a black person, if you are non-white and non-black, but society has ascribed you a race or another box for you to check in, or if you're filling out those forms and you don't see a box as it relates to the hue of your skin or how you identify. This conversation is for anyone who is interacting in our systems and is interacting with black people. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight is all black mental health. So what are we talking about? Where should we start? The one thing that I will say tonight is thank God for COVID-19. Most people won't say that, but I'm saying it tonight. Thank God for COVID-19. Let me just turn this music down because it's a little bit distracting and I have a lot to say tonight. Hey Nicole, how are you? Why am I saying thank God for COVID-19? So many people are sick. So many people have passed away. So many people have lost their jobs, their entire industries. But I say thank God for COVID-19, and I also say thank God for the new black movement that has arisen, that has come to the surface since last spring. And why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if it wasn't for COVID-19, then we would all be out and about doing our normal thing, running around like crazy. I know for me, COVID-19 forced me to slow down. And I really had to look at my life and go, I was probably going a little bit too fast. A lot of people in the past, 6 months have said to me, I was headed to burnout. And if it wasn't for COVID-19 that slowed my butt down, then that's probably where I would be. And COVID-19 forced us to slow down, stay home. And what else did we have to do besides watch Netflix and think? Think about where our lives are headed. Think about our current political systems. Think about our current socioeconomical systems. Hi everyone joining. It's all black mental health tonight. And I'm saying thank God for COVID-19. So thank God for COVID-19 that slowed us down. But the other thing is that, with all of the atrocities towards black people that we witness on our TVs and on our phones, it caused a bit of an uprising in our world, not just our North American community. However, we've had protests before. We've had horrible things happen to black individuals before, and the world did not come to a standstill. However, I believe that the world slowed down to really take this in because we were all stuck at home. We had nothing else to do. We had nothing else to distract us. We had nothing else no other business to go out and take care of. Hi everyone just joining. We had no other business to go out and take care of. And so we were glued to our screens. We were glued to our TVs, our phones, our tablets, our computers, because we had nothing else to do and we were all at home. So that made us really take in the stuff that was going on to black people across this world. Yes, friend, they were forced to pay attention. Hey, Jane. So with that, people began to pay attention to their feelings. We didn't have work to distract us. We didn't have the train to distract us. We didn't have the You know, I gotta run off to the gym. I have to go have dinner with the girls. I have to go hang out at the bar with the guys or play basketball or whatever. We didn't have any of those things to do. And so we had to stay home and sit down and think about we had to feel the feelings. We had to feel the anger. We had to feel the sadness. I know I cried more than once. We had to feel the injustice of it all and really think about, hold on, this is the life that we're currently living. We are just accepting that this is the status quo for Black people in our world. And I think that, you know, businesses began to pay attention because people were like, no, I'm snatching my dollars and I'm going to a Black-owned business. I'm going to a Black-owned company, a Black-owned agency. We're looking at businesses now going, what do your executives look like? You know, everyone is saying, we're changing policy, we're going to do this different, we're going to do that different. And people are holding their feet to the fire saying, what does your board look like? What does your board of directors look like? What does what do your VPs look like, right? And so we are holding people accountable. People, as a result of that, as a result of all of that, people are waking up to the importance of Black mental health. Friend is saying, past repressed trauma came back to the forefront of our minds. Yes, right? When I think of George Floyd, I think of Trayvon Martin. I think of all, you know, Tamir Rice, all the people who died at the hands of police officers, people who are incarcerated. Don't even get me started about incarceration. Incarcerated unfairly because of the color of their skin. I'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, one of the things that I will say is that last year, or maybe at the tail end of 2019, I was in talks with someone about potentially delivering a workshop. And we were talking about what it was towards the Black community. And we were talking about what are some of the workshops that we can present to the Black community. And I suggested, let's talk about anxiety. And this person, the head of the organization, he said to me, Black people don't talk about anxiety, so we have to choose something else. And I ended up talking to the people about parenting, as much as I wanted to push talking about anxiety and depression. But guess who's all talking about anxiety and depression now? All the Black people, because everybody is facing it, right? And everybody is owning up to the realities of it as a result of this new racial uprising and as a result of COVID-19. So that's why I said, thank God for those things. The other thing that I want to mention is, why is it that Black people don't talk about mental health? Why is it that Black people don't talk about anxiety? We always say it, we don't talk about that stuff in our community. But the truth of the matter is, it's not because we just, you know, think that's above us, or, you know, the reason that we have these major hang-ups about this is not just for the want of being different. But if we had to really unfold our history, unfold decades, the repressed trauma, like Fran said, then we will realize that because Black people have had to struggle for hundreds of years, we never had the time to sit down and think, oh, I feel depressed. We didn't have the time to sit down and think, oh, I feel anxious. Nobody had the time for that. We had to be working 2-3 jobs, taking care of the children, paying the rent, you know, hustling to the bus stop, doing the thing. Hey, Dwayne, long time no see or talk. But we had to be busy doing those things. So we never had time to sit down and think about how we were feeling. The other thing about that is that, you know, when it comes to things like race, there's this idea that exactly, friends, suck it up and move on. Otherwise, you can't work and you can't eat. So you feel bad, you feel stressed out, you feel depressed. Suck it up, buttercup. Keep it moving. Those children gotta eat. And so that has been the pattern for many people. And so again, to the next point, what has happened is that society has somehow deemed Black individuals as incapable of feeling those feelings, or when we do feel those feelings, we are made to feel as though it's unimportant. And that makes me think of the hundreds of Black women who are dying in maternity wards all over North America. This idea that when Black individuals feel pain, it's not as important as when white individuals feel pain, or that we don't feel pain at all. And it's not just related to physical pain, but it's related to emotional pain as well. Because we've had to suck it up all these years, because we've had to just swallow it and keep going, it seems as though we don't feel. It seems as though we don't cry. It seems as though we don't feel anxious because we just look so strong. And the truth of the matter is, we're not. It's not that we're always strong. It's that we have never been given the luxury of sitting in our feelings and going, what is actually happening here right now? We've never had the luxury of taking a deep breath, of, taking a break in the middle of your day and going for a walk, right? We've never had the luxury of doing that. When, possibly, I'm just trying to think, when I was a little girl, when my peers were little children and we would say to our parents, we feel away, our parents would be like, deal with it, let's keep going, right? But that's because that's what they had to do when they were coming up. They just had to deal with it. Well, now we're calling no more on that. Now we are saying we feel, right? We cry, we get anxious, we worry, we get stressed out, we get burnt out, and we are going to deal with it, and the rest of y'all will have to deal with it as well. Okay, what else? So our society, right? Our schools, our jails, our politics, our news will show us that whiteness is centered. That is the place of normalcy. That is a place where decisions are made. That is the place of authority. Those of you who follow me will notice that I posted a couple days ago on the 1st of February about at my last 9 to 5, my kid was in the office and he saw the manager go by and he's like, is that the boss? And I said, yeah, how'd you know that? And he said, well, that's because he's white. The idea that he would have the idea or the notion that white is a place of authority in his world is a really stark, sad reality that we have to face in North America. Even in the Caribbean, right, where the majority of the people are Black. I can't speak for all the Caribbean, but I can speak for Jamaica. The people who, there's an idea of shadeism or colorism, the people who have lighter tones, that's where the place of authority resides, right? And, it's the same here. If you're white, then you're all right, right? And so in my kid's school, the teachers are white. The principal is white. All, in his world, the people who read the news are white. Like, all the decision makers, right? And so if that is the situation, what does that do to the psyche of an individual coming up? What does that do to the minds of those who are trying to figure out who they are, right? I'm already a grown woman. I was raised in the Caribbean and then I moved here. I've been living here now for over 20 years and I have an idea of who I am. Hey, Natasha, I have an idea of who I am. And so my perception of myself is already formulated. But for those of people who are still trying to figure out who they are, what does it feel, what do you think it does to them when they go to the movies and all but maybe 1 or 2 people in a movie, is white? All of the trailers, all of the people in the trailers are white. Like, think about the idea of, the Black individuals who have won Oscars. Think about the roles that they had to play. Think about the Black movies that get all the accolades. They're the slave movies. They're the maid and butler movies. They are the movies of racial uprising. They are, when Denzel Washington won his Oscar, it was for Training Day, which was the role of a corrupt police officer. when Halle Berry won her Oscar. I cannot remember the name of the movie, but it was the movie, I think she played a prostitute in the movie or something like that. But think about that. What does that do? And we don't talk about this because we don't even recognize it. Yes, Natasha, representation matters, right? When think about when, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow, when she won her Oscar. I can't remember the name of the movie right now, but it was a movie where she played this very demure, regular sort of run-of-the-mill woman, right? Think about the movies that where the black actors are being rewarded. Sorry, the white actors are being rewarded, right? They're for playing normal roles. But when we are rewarded, it is for staying in our place, right? What does that do for someone coming up trying to figure out who they are in this world? How does that impact their identity, right? Stay in your place. Don't make any disruption. Don't make any waves, right? Which is why when we protest, we are met with so much force. Think about the foolishness that happened on the US Capitol on January 6th, right? Everyone was talking about that. We all know the reality, how the reality would have been different if there were black and brown people invading the Capitol. There would be bodies everywhere, right? I'm not going to get on that because that makes me so angry. But there is this idea of identity formation and who we see ourselves as. Do we see ourselves as change makers, right? Why is it that, when I first came to this country and I was looking for work, why is it that it took me about, 20 interviews over the course of maybe 4 years before I was interviewed by a black woman? Why is that? Right? Why don't we have more places of leadership? I think it's great that due to COVID-19 and this racial uprising, that we're seeing more black experts on TV, because my husband would laugh at me because I would watch the news, and if the expert that they brought on was white, I was switching the channel, right? I've spoken on IG Lives before about how when my husband and I, hey Rashida, how about when my husband and I go to the movies, if it's a movie where a black man is being incarcerated, he is up and he is walking out, no matter how much we pay to come in there. He's not inhaling that, right? We have to unlearn all the years of this. Why is it normal for black people to be incarcerated on TV? Why? Right? The other thing that I'm just ranting on here tonight, but the other thing that impacts our mental health is how our story is told. It is often said that stories are told from the place of the victor, right? When pictures are being taken of people who go on safaris and glorify the kill of these magnificent beasts, it is always a story of the survivor, right? I'm sure when, exactly, friend, who is telling the story and how are they telling it? And that brings me to our Black history books. Because I've had the privilege of growing up in the Caribbean, I know Jamaican history very, very well. I have a cousin, an older cousin of mine, who is a history teacher, and she made sure that I knew it, right? Exactly, Natasha, that story is told from the perspective of the hunter and not the lion, right? And, the history books in Jamaica are very, very different because they tell us about the indigenous peoples of the country. They tell us about the Arawaks and the Caribs, and they tell us about how black people ended up coming to the islands. They tell us about how Christopher Columbus wasn't the great discoverer, he was actually lost, right? Okay, so Dwayne says, so the question is, how can systemic and systematic racism be reversed for the improvement of black mental health? Well, I'm really glad you asked that. Put a pin in that. I'll get back to that in a second. Let me just finish this piece about the history, right? We have to well, I guess it kind of speaks to your question here, Dwayne. We have to start uh, reclaiming our history. Black history isn't taught in our schools here. They're not in our history books. They're not in our textbooks. And we have to undo that. So part of the answer, Dwayne, is that we have to get political. And I was listening to Selena Caesar Chavin the other day. She was on the on another live, and she was talking about how we have to ensure that when we engage in politics, it's not just at the ballot box. There's different ways to be political. We protest, we speak to our we lobby our MPs and our MPPs or members of parliament. We join, different organizations that are pushing the agenda. We connect our networks. We ensure that our voices are heard. We call the TV stations and we say, why is it that you have no Black experts? We, submit articles to the newspapers for, op-ed pieces. We speak up, we get loud, and we refuse to be silent is what we need to do. Natasha says Black history has to be taught from our stories before slavery. Exactly. My friend Camila always quotes Muta Baruka, where he says, he's a Jamaican dub poet, and he says, slavery is just a part of African history. It isn't the beginning of African history. We have to teach our people who we were before. And, we're starting to reclaim a little bit of that just in our vernacular when we're talking, when the women are talking to each other, they go, yes, queen. And, men are talking to each other, they big up the king. And, we start to speak to each other in ways that are more uplifting, right? And we talk about, busting our crown, our honor and acting, celebrating who we are, talking to our children, telling them who they are, for the world to tell them who they should be, right? The way changing things, we have to get involved. We cannot and should not just sit by and wait for the system to change, because the system wasn't built by us and it wasn't built for us, and it will not change, right? When any change that has been made in history has never been made because people sit down and go, oh, well, let's wait for it to happen. It has happened because people take it in their own hands, right? So whether that's running for public office, right? I'm thankful for all of the Black individuals in this country who have ran for public office and have paved the way for more people to do so, right? Getting involved in community organizations, when your city or your town is having a town hall on whatever, show up, have your voice heard. Don't just come and yell and scream and call people names and carry on, right? Because that's just going to entrench that status quo, the stereotypes that they have of us. But show up with Black excellence. Show up with a sense of having authority. Show up being informed. Read a newspaper, right? Figure out what's going on, understand what's going on, and show up and have your voice heard. Lobby, members of parliament, get political. And that doesn't just mean, yes, we all need to be voting, right? But not just the vote. Do a little bit more than that. When white people get together, things happen. Charmaine heard the point of view. Black people weren't slaves, they were stolen and made into slaves. That's right. And so when you hear certain people talk, speakers and talkers like B. Kwame, when she goes into schools, she doesn't talk about slaves, she talks about enslaved people. And it might just seem like it's just a phrase, but discourse matters. The way we talk about ourselves, it changes how we feel about ourselves, right? Where was I with that? I don't even know where I was with that. But we do need to get involved, right? Another thing that knocks us down and harms our mental health is how we have to live in this country, how we have to look over our shoulders and wonder what's going to be the next thing, how we have to listen to how people, speak of us you know, how we have to talk to our children, how we have to prepare them about how they have to behave just in case they have an encounter with the police. That's demoralizing. You know, someone said the other day that it's like we're walking around with an invisible backpack full of bricks. We're carrying a weight that other people do not have to carry. That impacts our mental health, right? And when we seek mental health supports, it's hard to find clinicians that look like us. And I'm not saying that a white person cannot be a therapist to a black person. They can, but it's if a black person has to explain to the white therapist what's happening, then it's not making the situation any better, and they cannot heal properly, right? I'm all for, the term cultural competence. That's not a term I really like, but people need to know what's happening. If you are going to be a white therapist to a black person, you need to get educated. Read a few books, right? Google and YouTube are free. Follow the thinkers and the leaders in this space. Understand what is happening and what black people are struggling with. One of the things that I've shared before is that when Kobe Bryant died tragically last year, I had a really difficult time with that. And after a few days, I had to sit with myself and figure out why it was that I was with that. And when I sat down and I really listened to myself, what came up for me was that I basically Kobe, watching him leave school and go straight into, I think he left high school and went straight to the pros. When he had that run-in with the law, him and that girl, I watched all of it on the TV, right? And my brother was a huge basketball fan, so I grew up with all of it. And to watch him become a man, to watch him become excellent at his craft, to watch him, have his children and take care of his family, to watch him, I believe he was retired only a couple of years when he passed away. And I was sort of looking forward to him passing on the baton to the younger people behind him. He was a black man who kind of made it, right? And to be cut down really in his prime, it was so tragic for me to see a black man work really hard, become successful, and then it was over, right? It was like he just did not get to, see his girls grow up and retire well. That was just really tragic for me. And we have to consume a lot of that. We have to consume a lot of black people being cut down in their prime. And it's harmful. It's harmful to watch these images on our TVs, on our news stations, to absorb all of that. I felt the same way when, oh my goodness, someone remind me of his name, Black Panther. When Black Panther died, right? I felt the same way. I was just heartbroken because here was this man that represented black excellence and he was just gone, right? All those things impact our mental health, right? We don't have Chadwick Boseman. Thank you, Rashida. We don't have safe spaces to talk about these things. I was in a meeting on Zoom last night with a bunch of black therapists, and I turned on my screen and there were just all these beautiful dark brown faces, and we were just all talking about the community and mental health and listening to everyone just talk. My heart just felt so warm, right? The same this afternoon, I was in a meeting with some brilliant black women, and it just did my heart so good. How many times do you walk into a room and you're the only black person? That chips away at you a little bit at a time. So we need to get involved to ensure that the generation coming up after us are not the only black people in the room. We need to start to push against the doors. We need to start demanding more seats at the table. And all of these things are happening, and I am so glad. I am so glad that we are paying attention to ourselves. I am so glad that we are beginning to realize that black people hurt, and we feel, and we cry, and we get anxious, and we get depressed, and we get stressed out. And it is all worthy of recognition, that we are all worthy of having these feelings. We are all worthy of being held and being supported, right? Yes, Charmaine, that feeling can start in the classroom, right? I mean, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I am talking to the school board where my kids go to school, and I'm like, what are you guys doing to ensure more Black teachers in the school? And I am not letting up. You know, they're talking to me about the, you know, the union and the teachers coming up and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, get it going. You know, my children need to have positive representation, because children cannot be what they cannot see, right? It gives the representation, gives them permission. It says, hey, you can do that. That's why grown folks were crying when Barack Obama became president, right? And why they cried again when Kamala Harris became VP, right? One of a coach, mentor, and good friend of mine, Monique Bryan, she posted that during the inauguration, when Kamala was taking her oath, she, you know, held her breath because she was just so worried that some lunatic would come and cut her down. That is not something that white individuals live with, right? And so when you have to live with, you know, this state of what's going to happen, that's anxiety that's chipping away at you, right? And it does not need to be. So I encourage us to use our voices, even if you feel like you're not in a big space. Use your voice wherever you are, whether it's in the co-op in your building, or whether that's in, you know, the parent council at your kid's school, right? Show up if you can. Volunteer. Be that, God, when COVID goes away, be that people, those people on the field trip. Be the people volunteering in the school if you can, right? Take care of your mind. Yes, Natasha, racial trauma, right? Take care of your mind. Give yourself some rest when you can, so you can come back and fight another day. And I'm not just talking about fighting and protesting in the street, because there's room for all of that. But I'm talking about fighting by being joyful, fighting by teaching your children how to advocate, teaching your children how to advocate well, teaching your children how to be polite so they're not dismissed, right? We have to start demanding change, because people are not going to roll over and give us the change that we deserve. Whew, I've been venting for a solid like 35 minutes. And my phone is telling me that I guess I've ran the battery down. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts, comments, or questions. What do you guys think about racial trauma and racial injustice, and how we can show up for our children, show up for ourselves, show up for our community, make things happen? Those of you who are politically inclined or motivated, run for office. We'll all vote for you. Let us make some change happen. Write the books. Those of you who are writers, get your ads in the newspapers. They're looking for Black writers. They're looking for Black experts on TV. Hello, if you are anywhere in my circle, then you will know all of my therapy girls have been all over the place, right? Podcasts, TV, you know, radio stations. We've been everywhere because people are beginning to realize that we have something to say. And I encourage us all to say it loud, right? I want you guys to, you know, be aware of what's happening. And it's not just Black people, it's other people of color as well, right? You know, a lot of, I was talking to someone today in a meeting, a lot of anti-Asian sentiments happening. People are being harmed. It's this ugly racism is everywhere, right? Bob Marley very prolifically said, how does it go? Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, there will always be war. And while I don't want that to be true, it seems to be true. But guys, make your voices heard. Refuse to be silenced, and let us change the world. Let's change the world so we can take care of our mental health. Because, honey, I've got places to go. And so do you. Anyway, I am going to let you go. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to vent. Just let me take up space tonight. We have to take care of ourselves. We have children coming up, young people, whether or not you have children, you have nieces, nephews. That's saying thank you. You've always been a good. Philosophy holds superior, never infinitely, credited and abandoned, and everywhere is war. They say war, right? So let us just sit for change to happen to us. Let us step forward and demand the change, right? And if you are a Black business owner and you are, in the space of commerce, charge for your services. Don't roll over and give it to people for free, right? Let them recognize our worth. You take up space, take your seat at the table, have your voice heard, get political, do the thing. Let's take care of our people and take charge of our mental health. You guys, thank you so much for having me, for joining me tonight. I want you to keep in mind because you only have. I'll see you Wednesday at 8. Love you. Good night. Bye, Nicole. Thanks for joining. See ya. Hello, everyone. I am Roxanne Francis, and welcome to Afterthought, where we talk all things mental health and real life. Apparently, I was having some trouble with my videos, so let's try this one more time. I'm not sure if the video is gonna comply with us. Jody, let me know if you're having the same trouble. I might have to call it a night if it continues. Let me know if this is any better. I'm not sure. Tonight we're talking about the